Hola, mujerones. Welcome to the podcast and our new format. We are so excited to bring this podcast visually now so you can watch us on YouTube if you are tuning in. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that a lot of you ask me questions on. Sonia, how can I actually bring and accomplish my goals to life in 2025? And for me, when I sat down and thought about this question, because I know a lot of us get started and maybe we're super excited to start a new goal or a new podcast, right? A new event, a new community, a new business, whatever that looks like for you. But the consistency is where we slack. And let me tell you right now, with this podcast, it is something that I am working so hard on to bring you the best quality and just show up differently because this is something that I want to do going forward. So for me, I want to share three things that completely changed the game for me, even when it comes to the Mujeron Movement event or launching the program that we have, Mujeron University, or this podcast, like I mentioned, right? So I'm going to be sharing those three things with you. But first of all, I want to talk to you about what was a big game changer for me last year. I talk about investing in yourself so much, investing in your business. Last year, I worked with someone that helped me really look into my systems. Now, this is going to be one of the steps that I'm going to be telling you more about today, but investing in yourself is definitely one of the ways that you're going to fast track your growth, that you're going to really get into the next level. Um, I'm going to be talking about that in many of the things that I'm going to be touching on today on this podcast. But let's get started on number one. So, the first thing, and I know you've heard this before, amiga. I know that you're going to be like, yeah. I know I need to have my why. I know I need to be clear on my vision. But that is step one. If you want to accomplish your goals, especially in 2025, let me tell you, as you've seen what's going on all around us, now more than ever, I need you to step into it. I need you to get serious. I need you to get your notebook out and write this down because now more than ever, we need your voice. We need your big idea. We need you to get out of your own head and get into action. Because I know that whatever it is that you're wanting to build, whether it's a podcast, it's an event, it's a business, it's a new product, you have this great idea to bring to our community, we need it. And I know it's going to create impact. That is super important. Being super clear on your vision, what impact are you going to create? Who are you going to serve? Who needs this? And why are you doing this? I want you to really focus on that one. Why are you doing this? Because let me tell you, there's going to be times when this is going to get really hard. Your journey, you're going to be like, am I getting anywhere? Am I doing anything? Is anyone listening to me? I've felt like that before, even on this podcast. So, with that, I need you to be super clear on why it is that you are doing this. I love to go back to the reference of fitness because I think that's something that we can all relate on when we're on our fitness journeys. Why are we doing this, right? There's going to be times where you want to throw in the towel. You've showed up, you've done all the reps, you've done the diet, you've done this, you've done that, and you don't see the results as quickly as you'd like. It's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in creating something from scratch. Sometimes you're going to show up and you're just not going to see the results just yet. You're not going to see the massive growth just yet. But in those times, I need you to go back and think about, why did I get started? Who am I supposed to be serving? Who out there needs to hear this message? And even if it's just that one person, that's enough for you to show up that one time that you're feeling like today's just not my day. There's going to be days like that. Give yourself grace, but go back to your why. So I want you to get, these are some of the questions that you can ask yourself on gaining clarity on your why. What does success look like for me in 2025? And you can talk about your personal, your business, finances, health, relationships. Like, how does this goal really help your bigger vision and the values that you want to live your life? all around in your life, right? Your health, like I said, your personal, your relationships, your finances. How is this helping me with my bigger vision? And then the other thing that kind of aligns with this is, how does this goal align with your values? Specifically, that question, I want you to sit down and answer it. Here's the reason why. And I love to talk about values because everything you do should align with your values. It's a lot easier for you to show up when it's so ingrained in your values. So if my top values, in my top values, family is there, and this project is helping me in some way, shape, or form, helping me be closer to my family, then absolutely I'm going to show up, right? If in my values, reaching financial freedom is something, and this specific goal is helping me in some way, shape, or form with my financial freedom, it's going to be easier for me to show up. So making sure that your goal aligns with the way that you want to live your life, the person that you want to show up in this world, the change that you want to see in this world. It's super important for you to embody all of this. And then the last thing I want you to think about it is, I want you to define your top 3 goals and write a clear vision for each of them. Now, I know that a lot of this might seem like it's a lot of writing, like I don't have time to sit down and write it all out, but I promise you, if you just do the one first step, just your why, you're going to get some clarity on this project, this big goal, whatever it is that you want to accomplish in 2025. So that's number 1. I want to get into number 2, and it's kind of what I was talking to you at the beginning. It's something that completely changed the game for me last year, especially in my business. And it's something that even in your house, you can start to implement. And that is systems. What are the systems that really help simplify the tasks, right? The things that you have to do in order to show up. Now, I want to kind of break it down into 2 things. Number 1 is the systems that you can start to implement yourself, right? What are some of the things that I can do in order for this to be easier for me? A very simple one that I can share that is very tangible is theming your days. If you are someone that, let's say you're wanting to launch a podcast, make sure you theme at least 1 or 2 days out of the week that are going to be your recording days, especially when you're first starting, because you want to get some practice runs in. You want to make sure that you're doing it more often and you're getting more comfortable on the mic in front of the camera. So implementing those theme days, that's like one system, one specific tool that I can share. But there's so many, and I want you to just do some research. What works for you? The same thing in your household, right? What are some systems that you can implement in your household in order for things to work for you guys? For me, it had always been like theming my days as well. My schedule has definitely changed since I moved to Arizona, but even now, I feel like that has helped me kind of juggle the many things that I'm trying to accomplish, right? I've talked about how helping my family business is one of my big goals as well. So, one of the big boundaries that I set was, in order for me to dedicate time to both of these things that really mean a lot to me, is scheduling out times out of the week where I will just focus on work for the family business, for example. If I go there on Mondays, I can't be taking calls for Mujeron movement while I'm there. I've tried it. It didn't work. And I wasn't really giving my all to either one. So that is one of the big things that I want you to focus on. If you have a 9 to 5, for example, and you're trying to start another business, you can't work on your business while you're at work, right? Because then you're not really focusing on the work that you need to do there. So make sure you just allocate time whenever you have it. If you don't have it, trust me, I know you have it. Check your screen time. We all have some time in there. So I can guarantee you that there is at least an hour out of your week that you can start to allocate for that. So that is a big thing. Now I want to talk about, let me give you another example though. For systems at home that have helped me, as simple as having a calendar that you share with your spouse, for example, or your partner, if you have to juggle things for your kids, that kind of stuff, being able to communicate, right? That's another tool that we don't, I feel like we kind of talk about it, but we don't really talk about it that much, which is ironic because it's communication and it's communicating what's going on. When I first became a mom, that was such a hard thing for me because I didn't realize my son was going to have his own little schedule. So communicating that with my husband was key in order for us to know, when are you picking up? When am I picking up? Things change throughout the week, right? We need help, we need support, making sure that we let people know when we need that support. And then the other portion that I want to talk to you about is investing in systems. So, one of the things that I've been wanting to do for a very long time is bring this podcast to you guys in this format. Have, the setup. You guys know I come from a background of TV. Like, that has been my goal. How can I bring this in a setup or in a format that I can show up on camera and live my passion through that? Like, this is something that I really feel fulfilled doing, like sitting here with the lights. I don't know, it just gets me excited. So, this was something that I really wanted to bring to you guys. And investing was something that I knew was going to help me. I can't do this by myself. So I invested in someone that can come and help me set it all up. And now I'm being held accountable, right? So I'm going to be doing this more often. And this is one of the ways that you can start to implement those ways by investing in yourself. Last year, I've talked about Luisa a lot. Shout out to her because she helped me think about my business in a different way. And no matter what you're doing, right? Whether you're trying to launch a business or you're trying to launch a podcast or you're just wanting to show up on social media a little bit more uh, like a leader, having someone to help you in the things that maybe you're not so great at is super important. So I invested in someone to help me with my systems on the back end of my business and just being able to look at my business in a way that, how are we going to grow it rather than like where we are now, was like a super game changer for me, because now I was able to think, okay, if I want to bring on more clients, then the way that I'm functioning right now might not be the best way. How can I start to prepare for that? Even if that doesn't mean I start to hire a team, right, before I have the clients, but maybe I start to set up certain ways, a certain structure within my business in order for me to open up more space, more capacity, more time, whatever that looked like for me. So, really implementing those systems. Now, I want you to think about the systems right now in your life that you can start to implement in order for you to get closer to your goal. Whatever your goal is, what can you do right now in order for you to get closer? And identify, like, what would that milestone look like? Can you give yourself a timeline? Okay, by 2 or 3 months, I want to be able to implement this in order for me to get to that level. Again, when it comes to examples, right? If you're someone that's launching a business and maybe it's as simple as how many times you're going to be showing up in order to bring on clients, develop a system that works for you. What does consistency mean for you? And then start to implement that within the time, right? The clarity that you have, the systems that you can implement in order for you to show up. So that's number two. And I know there's a lot more to that, but I want you to just simplify it the most that you can right now when it comes to systems. Just one little step that you can implement today that will help you get started, even if it's just as simple as telling someone that you're going to do it, which brings me to my last point, which is building an environment of success. Like, what does that look like around you? And I want to share a very specific one, which is accountability. That for me has always been key in order for me to show up in any area of my life. Even if I just go back to like personal, business, financial, health, and relationships, right? If I talk to you about business, hiring a coach has been a great way for me to hold myself accountable. Hiring the person I told you about systems, right? Hiring someone to help me with the podcast, like all of those are ways that I have implemented accountability in my business so that I can show up. Because I know that for me, accountability is key. Like that's the number one way that I'm going to show up. And I know that for you, it might be the same. It's just a different way for us to show up and be account when we have accountability. Now, you can either hire someone, maybe you're not there and that's okay. Maybe your accountability right now looks like you reaching out to someone that has a similar goal than you and that can resonate with what you're doing and also needs that accountability. Or maybe it looks like you showing up online and saying like, hey, my goal is to hit the gym this many days this year. So then guess what, you start to let us know when you're at the gym. You see those selfies for a reason. Like we show up in online with that for a reason, and that's another way that you can hold yourself accountable. So find out, what does that look for you? It can be in community. That's one of my favorite ways to hold myself accountable. Find a community that you can share your goals with and someone that is like-minded. Maybe they're going after the same goals as well, and you can hold each other accountable through that community. Another way of holding yourself accountable. So we talked about investing, we talked about community, we talked about showing up on social media and your accountability partner, right? Like that's another way that for me has worked. Even this year, I want to give a shout out to a special friend, Stephanie. I've never met her in person, guys. Like I've never met this girl in person, but we connected through Threads, I believe. I had her on my podcast. We vibed so hard that I'm like, girl, we need to like hop on a call every week so that we can hold each other accountable, because we had very similar goals and we knew we needed that accountability. And we've been hopping on Zoom calls, talking to each other and really just going over, what are some of the things that we need to work on. And even as of lately, there was something that really shifted in our relationship where we were like, hey, you know what? How can we make this relationship of being accountability partners even more effective? Because I don't want to hop on here every week and waste your time and vice versa, right? Like this has to work for both of us. And one of the things that we decided was, how about we set a very specific goal on our call and then follow up with each other by the end of the week so that we make sure that we get things done. And for me, that was such a huge game changer, because not only was I hopping on a call with her and co-working and getting things done, but then she was reaching out, or I was reaching out, hey, how are we getting these things done? How are we finishing up what we said we were going to do? So for me, that was a huge game changer. And I wanted to share this specifically because it's such a different part of accountability that we don't unpack. Don't use accountability just the way that I'm telling you, or the way that fulanita de tal is telling you, or the way that you see online. Use it to the way that works for you, because all of this is very unique. Your journey, your needs, your lifestyle, everything is so unique to you. So what works for you and what's going to help you with the most? All right, so those are my 3 key steps, the 3 key steps for the formula of accomplishing your goals in 2025. And I want to leave you with 2 questions that are going to help you really unpack it a little bit more. What does that look like, right? So the first one is, what currently is keeping you from being in alignment with who you want to become? Like, what are the things that right now are keeping you from being in alignment from who you want to be, how you want to show up, who you want to surround yourself with, all of those different things. And I want you to sit down. If you do anything from this podcast episode, is this last question. Like, this last question, really think about what is keeping you from being in alignment. Because when you get clear and you start to take that out of your life, you start to make more time for what you want to do and for who you want to become. And when you start to do that, then you won't even ask me the question of how do I get started, because you will have the answer yourself. And then the other thing that I want you to think about is, who would I be if these things were no longer in my life? After you answer that, and you have the answer, right? The things that are blocking you from being in alignment, then think about, who would you be? And I want you to be specific, not just like, I would be this, this, and that. How would you feel? Who would you impact? What change would you see in your life and in those that you love and others that are around you? Because then you would get even more clear on, yes, these things need to leave my life right now in order for me to step into who I am meant to become. So, amiga, thank you so much for joining us for our very first Mujeron podcast episode in this new format. I'm so excited to continue to create this type of content that is meant and specifically designed to uplift you, to empower you, and to give you tangible tools to become the mujeron of your dreams.